on the minutes from
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Nope, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Bob. I have to
sorry.
do a roll call. No,
Got
I'm
it.
sorry. I
I'm
have to do a
sorry.
roll call for the votes. I'm sorry.
Yep.
For the minutes.
No, it's fine.
Approval of minutes. If you could say aye or nay. Arana Ortiz,
Aye.
Arenas,
Aye.
Steam,
Aye.
Bradley,
Aye.
Cronin,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Josina Fori,
Aye.
Gallery,
Aye.
Hyler,
Aye.
and and Hawkins. I'm sorry, and Hyler.
As in John.
Correct.
On your
I'll
muted.
call you guys by your first name so we don't confuse it because you're side by side. Got it. Thank you. You can move on.
Okay, David.
Thank you, Bob. I'll begin with the President's report. Jay, if I could have the following staff members added to panelists for now. If we need additional, we'll call on them. J.R. Craven, Angela Vezaga, Michael Colford, Laura Ermshire, and Lena, who I believe Michael will be introducing in a second. And then go to slides, please. So good morning, trustees. I would like to begin with a brief update on personnel. We have two new managers to introduce to you who are hired and promoted respectively over the summer. J.R. Craven is our new manager of human resources and labor relations, and I would like to welcome him to the team. And J.R., if you would like to say a sentence or two to introduce yourself to the trustees, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm born and raised here in Boston. I've been practicing law for about 20 years. My most recent assignment was over at the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, where I was the acting labor counsel and deputy general counsel, or excuse me, assistant general counsel. And while I was there, I helped with drafting policies, as well as I helped with drafting the CBAs, negotiating them, as well as handling internal investigations of violations of the collective bargaining agreements, as well as any commission policy. So I come with a lot of labor experience and with some HR experience, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you, JR. And I'm also pleased to introduce to you in a new role, our new Director of Strategic Partnerships, the person who will be the second person in this role, replacing Ben Hires, and that is Angela Vezaga, formerly the Assistant Manager of Youth Services here at the library. So we're thrilled to have Angela be promoted into this position. Angela, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself with a couple of sentences to the trustees?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. As David said, I was the Assistant Manager of Youth Services, but I've been with the BPL for about 9 years now. I started as the teen librarian both at the Mattapan branch and at the East Boston branch. After that, I moved to Central to be the System-Wide Youth Programs Librarian, where I've created a ton of program for youth of all ages and coordinated a lot of partnerships, as well as the winter camps that we've been doing for the past 4 years that have been funded by the Highland Street Foundation. And I'm very excited for this new role and looking forward to working with everybody closely. Thanks.
Thank you both. So I would like to turn to the slides now and give some fairly brief, but I think consequential updates on current reality and current status. As you will recall, we closed our buildings on March 16th. And you can go to the next slide, Jay. And really focused largely on becoming an online service provider for that first period. We had the wonderful program of Books for Boston, which was still a way of reaching some of our patrons in person. And then starting June 22nd, we were approved to begin opening branches for limited scheduled service. and we began some services that I will talk about in the next couple of slides. But a few very high-level statistics just to give you a sense of how busy or how active the system has been. We have now signed up over 40,000 new library card users. That number has gone up since we last spoke. Since beginning the opening for BPL to go service June 22nd, we have seen holds placed on almost 130,000 physical books and about 110,000 or so picked up from across the system. Our digital statistics, however, are now almost at 2 million transactions for ebooks, and that exceeds what a whole year's worth of digital access would have been prior to the pandemic. Now, we know that statistics only tell part of the story, and so while the transaction numbers are really, really strong, our question as an institution is who isn't able to come pick up a book or interact with us or use our digital services. And so the bigger challenge really going forward is to increase the level of outreach and increase the number of opportunities to connect with patrons that either must stay at home or are scared to come out, or for whatever reason, whether they're part of the digital equity challenge or for whatever reason aren't connected with us. So we'll be going into that. Next slide, please. So programming remains really, really strong. And I'm incredibly proud of the team for taking what were in-person programs and offering them mostly online, almost exclusively online. And I think it's somewhat uncomfortable, as has been for all of us, to be on camera and in part be a type of entertainer in some ways, but really use this medium for educational, informational purposes. A number of programs that are listed on the slide, just to give you a sample of what is going on. I do think that there will be lessons learned from these offerings to know which ones we would want to keep once we come through this period, and which ones we could revert to either a hybrid model or in person. Next slide, please. And what this has allowed us to do, again, with both our librarians and our library staff in general, larger digital collections. In some ways we think of this as a temporary focus. If digital is where the demand is, then we have to respect that, but we also don't want to exclude or assume that just because there's high demand on the digital front, that's what everybody needs or wants. But as an alternative to in-person consultations, putting out book lists, recommendations lists, running shelf service programs, which is where you can request personalized recommendations for a reading topic, running book groups, and indeed suggesting purchases, all very robust services during this period. Next slide, please. There are three particular, sorry, I'm on the wrong slide myself. There we go. So the return of in-person core services, BPL to go, clearly about books for pickup. Printing to go, we added where you can submit a print document and then pick it up within 72 hours, often in 24 hours. For the museums that have reopened, we've been able to reactivate our museum passes. In many cases, those can be managed online. In other cases, there's still a physical pass, unfortunately, that has to be picked up. And then we have brought back in-person computer use at the central library. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be adding several of the branches that can handle it. But this is still very much a reduced service model for in-person. We continue to follow the state and the city's guidance, and can only bring back services that conform to all of the sanitation, cleaning, social distance protocols that are in place. And the city continues to treat every request for additional service with great caution, as you would want. Next slide, please. So part of the challenge is in helping those that don't have technology, whether that's broadband access, devices, or skills. And three areas that I wanted to highlight, which Priscilla Foley, Kirk Mansberger have been leading with the teams across the system, included extending the Wi-Fi networks at 9 branches that have decent exterior space, as it were. So we basically have boosted the signal with new equipment at all of these locations to ensure that people can drop by with their phone or laptop and do what they need to do. We'll keep that on, but that's obviously, I think, more attractive during the summer than the winter. And our thanks go to the BPL fund and their donors, or our donors, our shared donors, for supporting that program. Equally, the hotspot lending program has been expanded, and this is a costly but important program, and so we're adding here in order to keep the wait list low. We plan to explore and roll out some opportunities for Chromebook lending as well. Next slide, please. We've also been doing our part with other city colleagues around ensuring everybody gets counted. Again, a challenging opportunity, a challenging program to support because we're reliant on online, either online or external signage or the occasional caller. But we know how important it is that everybody be counted. We were glad to see the original end date of October be reinstated. In terms of ongoing and upcoming election support, several of our branches will act as polling places. 2 locations will be early voting locations. And I believe we have 10 locations that will be hosting on the exterior a ballot box drop-off. So this is our way of delivering through our partners, part of our mission of civic engagement. More core to what we do is the educational program related to issues of the day. And then just to highlight, our digital programs team continues to build on its strengths during this time, and has launched in partnership with Northeastern University and the Boston Research Center there, an oral history project documenting some of the oral history of neighborhoods of Boston. And that's in pilot mode right now. We'll be able to report in more detail on that at a later date. We've also been documenting some of the public art around Boston as a way of ensuring that what is sometimes a temporary installation, that there's at least a record of it for perpetuity. So those are 2 little exciting things that are both about our services and about the digital divide in some ways. Trustees, as you are all aware, and there will be a vote later in the agenda. Next slide, please. We have done some internal work around the topic of racial equity. We have developed and shared with you, and certainly via email, gotten some feedback and general approval on the racial equity statement and action plan that is now posted on our website, and activities are underway to enact the actions called for in that plan. We will be asking you later in this agenda to formally vote and endorse that administrative statement as it currently stands. Key aspects of this include reviewing hiring practices and collection development, doing so in close alignment with city departments. The mayor has now signed 2 executive orders related to the equity matters, and we have engaged with YW Boston as our external partner to do a organizational assessment and begin the process of some staff training and organizational change under this banner. Next slide. And then I wanted to I have 3 more slides, and then we'll pause for questions and comments, and ask my colleagues to add in a second. So our priorities, really in light of both the public health emergency of COVID-19 and its economic impacts, as well as the public health emergency of racial equity in Boston. Our priorities really are focused on youth engagement and workforce development. These are the 2 areas where, in addition to everything the library does, these are the areas where we can make a real difference in 2 areas of our population where we believe the need to be truly great. Distance learning for kids across the city is a challenge, despite the best efforts of all of our partners in the school systems. Youth engagement outside of school learning with respect to social and emotional learning remains a challenge. The economic impacts of the pandemic will be with us for much time to come, and we want to raise up the work that we've been doing in this area of resume writing, skills development, connecting people to resources, and preparing them for the workforce that's ahead. And then with respect to our equity work, that is both a lens to look at this work and our other work, as well as a priority for us in terms of our internal organization, but also our services to the general public. So that calls for greater outreach and marketing, ensuring that the digital equity and closing the digital equity gap, the digital divide, remains a priority. Put simply, this is in large case not necessarily always about doing more, but sometimes about getting the word out more aggressively, specifically reaching vulnerable, needy, and hard to reach. This was all difficult to keep front and center during the first few months of the pandemic, but now that we have a good foundation of working in this world, that's how we go forward. But at the same time, we're not taking our eye off capital improvement projects, which are all on track and back underway, as well as a keen eye on fiscal discipline as we navigate through current budget reality and possibilities in the future. Next slide, please. Tech Goes Home has been a very successful program that we have run across the system in the past. It has always been in person, and Michael and his team have moved this to online, as well as you get the device or the Chromebook at the start of the program now instead of waiting till the end, because you needed to actually take the courses online. And there's a version of this that is targeted at small businesses as well. Here are some of the resources that we are amplifying from our Kirstein Business Library and Innovation Center, as well as partnering with the Community Learning Center and our staff locally in the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. And so note on capital, a future meeting will drill into the capital budget overall, but some really exciting and key updates for branches that have milestones coming up. The Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library at Nubian Square, formerly the Dudley branch, construction is complete. Staff are in the building getting ready, and we're looking for an opening date now, probably in late October or the very beginning of November. This will probably be a hybrid event, partially online, and maybe a small socially distanced event in person. I will keep you posted on dates for all of these. Both the Adams Street and Rosendale branch construction projects are on track, and we will see opening dates, we hope, in spring and summer of next year, respectively. The Hyde Park project is mostly repair work, and that should be done towards the end of the year, the beginning of 2021, and will reopen for to-go service as well, or whatever additional services will be allowed at that time. And then Faneuil branch in Oak Square in Brighton just completed its design work, and we're moving into the construction stage soon. There is a close date for public service, which I believe is late November, and then that will be in process for construction as well. So at this point, we can go back. I'm going to pause for questions and comments, But before I do that, Michael Colford, I think, wanted to introduce one of our newer employees who has been key to the youth engagement work with a specific focus on homework help.
Thank you, David. Good morning, trustees. I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to do this because at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, there was quite a bit of interest in the homework assistance program and how we were supporting the Boston Public Schools. So I just wanted to briefly, that program was overseen by Angela Bezaga in her role as the Assistant Manager of Youth Services. But we recently created a new position that started in late March, early April, our youth educational specialist, to really expand the homework assistance program and to implement it. And it's been quite a challenge because it was an in-person program, and we have pivoted to virtual for the end of last school year, but really been focusing on this school year to expand it a great deal. And the person we hired, her name is Lena Rashikaitis, and I've invited her here just to say hello and to say a few words about the program as we're moving forward in September. So Lena, could you introduce yourself?
Jay may have to go find her and bring her up. I'm not sure we can.
Needs to promote her.
Apologies, I'm not actually seeing her in the attendees.
Okay, well, sorry about that, but Lena's been great, really. Just a quick background. When we originally started this program, it was at least 10 years ago. It was funded by the foundation. It was quite a strong program. And then over the years, as the funding dwindled, we took it over in-house, and it was still a very popular program, but the usage had decreased. So we really wanted to make an effort because it's both a wonderful program to support school-age kids in elementary school with homework help, but it was also a wonderful mentoring program for teens.
Sorry to interrupt, Michael. I found her. She wasn't under her name. I didn't realize she was using the homework assistance programming address.
Right.
So she's promoted now.
Wonderful. So Lena, if you could just introduce yourself and give a quick update on how we're moving forward this year.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Michael. My name is Lina, and as Michael said, I started back in April. And thanks for having me here to share a bit about the homework assistance program. So we started the program last Monday on September 21st, and it will be on Zoom for the foreseeable future. We have just over 50 teen mentors who are returning from last year or who were hired this summer to work for the program. And we also have 13 librarians who are involved in the program by supervising the Zoom calls that we have. And the program meets two needs, both in person and online: youth employment and free homework help and mentorship for students that are in grades K through 8. And I could share a bit about just how the program runs while we're online. This year we have 4 Zoom calls that run Monday through Thursday, 3:30 to 5:30. And each Zoom call represents groups of 4 to 5 library branches based on neighborhoods in the city and the branches that would have been hosting the program in person if we were in person this year. On each call, there is a librarian who supervises the call each day. They start the call promptly at 3:30. Mentors join, and there are 5 to 9 mentors on a given call. Some branches have more mentors, some less. When mentors were hired, they were hired with a specific branch in mind, in the case that we would be able to return back to in-person programming this year. But while we're online, they log on to the Zoom call that contains the branch that they have been assigned to. And when a student joins the call, the librarian sees that someone has entered the waiting room. They admit them to the call. And there's no registration required on the part of K through 8 students or parents who are looking to join the program. The program is completely drop-in. So students join the call by clicking on the Zoom links that are on our website, which is bpl.org/homework. And when they log on, the librarian asks what branch they usually go to, what their grade is, what school they go to. And then they assign them to a mentor, and the librarian puts the student and the mentor in a breakout room where they can work together, kind of speak more freely, screen share, and work on homework or other activities like developing skills related to what they're learning in school, doing some extra math, reading, writing, or just other activities or games that the student is interested in doing. So that is a brief overview of the program and how it's running online at the moment. I'm also happy to take any questions at any point.
Thanks, Lena. And thank you, trustees.
Thank you both. So we'll pause at this moment. Evelyn, I believe you are taking over chairing duties. Bob is still here. And if there are comments.
I'm still here, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Evelyn. I appreciate that.
No worries. I just want to comment. We did ask as we were going through in the finance and audit, you know, homework help. It's going to be crucial. That's a great program the library has always had. And then, you know, it's been very challenging for students to do remote learning. And that has been a gap, you know, how to get assistance to continue moving ahead through school. So that was a question that we had. So Lena and Michael, thank you for thinking out of the box and really bringing it forward and doing outreach to the schools so they can continue participating in such a great program and help the students at the end. So any questions? I do have one question, David. With the Racial Equity Fund, I know, because I did read the documents, and what is, I guess it's collaboration with the various departments. The library will work in collaboration, you know, for maybe launching initiatives or programming. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so the mayor appointed Dr. Carolyn Crockett, who I think is well known to several of us as the new chief of equity, and formed a new cabinet within city government that now includes, I'm going to do this from memory, so I apologize if I forget any department, but includes the Office of Immigrant Advancement, the Chief Diversity Officer, the Chief Resiliency Officer, the Office of Women's Advancement, and Language Access, I believe. And so a lot of these groups are now doing their work with a firm understanding of the equity lens and the diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility spectrum to which that belongs. And so it provides us a more structured way to partner and to ensure that we're following their best practices and that we're keeping them apprised of our efforts, and also learning for how to apply these practices and guidance to our work, which is about collections, programs, outreach, and work in our neighborhoods and in our communities. And so I'm very excited by those opportunities, because we should be taking free to all and making it about the neediest in our communities. All has to mean everybody. It can't mean just those that feel comfortable coming and walking through our doors, especially at this time. And so we have shared the statement with our equity chief, and she approves and wants us to go forward. I do want to call out that you know, the first real statement we made was in light of the George Floyd killing, and some subsequent events over the summer led us and staff to have a more robust conversation about making stronger statements. And you see in this statement, I think that message, that commitment, and clear actions for how to make it real. So I think that is really important. I want to thank an informal group of staff who, with colleagues who signed a petition on this front, but the small group formed themselves as the anti-racist working group, really to give feedback and input to this process. I also want to thank the two union executive boards who have also committed to endorsing this work. So we can only do this work if we're doing it together. And so to have them formally commit to this statement is very encouraging to me as well.
And I would not be amiss to also congratulate Linda, who is part of the Racial Equity Fund. So congratulations, Linda. We have a representative in the So with that, is there a motion, to approve the statement, the race and equity statement?
So moved. Moved.
Second?
Second.
A second.
And Pamela, roll call.
Thank you, Evelyn. Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas,
Aye.
Asim,
Aye.
Bradley,
Aye.
Cronin,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Josina Fori,
Aye.
Gallery,
Yes, aye.
John, Heiler,
Aye.
John Heiler,
Oh, yes, sorry, it's on mute. Yes, aye, sorry.
thank you, and Ms. Tyler.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. The motion has passed.
Thank you, trustees, for your support and endorsement of this very important effort. I'd
you
like
for
to
your
go
work.
back to the slides and continue a couple of items from my report. Several of which are updates. The first of which relates to fine forgiveness at the library. As you will recall, we eliminated fines on late materials for youth about a year ago, permanently, with the support of the mayor and the city of Boston. When we closed in person in March, we quickly took the decision to waive fines for the first period of time. And with the consent of the city of Boston and the mayor, that was extended until the end of this calendar year. So I just wanted to keep that in mind. The reason for this is we didn't want patrons bringing books back if they had difficulty getting in or didn't feel it was sufficiently safe for them. We wanted to minimize the amount of travel underway in the city. All very important measures early in the response to this pandemic. So right now that waiver is in effect until December 31st. Obviously, we'll review that based upon underlying conditions. I would like to bring up the, where are we? Yes, the art and architecture brochure. Which is an amazing piece of work. Paula Seki is on as the new executive director of the fund, and I think can help me talk a little bit about how this came into being. And so if you remember what we had before, it was basically 1 or 2 pages of 8.5 by 11 photocopied black and white brochure. And what we have now is something that is truly worthy of the McKim Building on the celebration of its 125th anniversary, having opened to the public in 1895. And so this is a really big milestone on the communications front and on the building front, and there is, in addition to Paula and her work with Bank of America, who have sponsored the production of this brochure, Beth Brindle's team has led this, and we really want to thank Meg Weeks for her incredible curation of the work in this brochure. So I think the link has been shared with you, and you can basically see that online for now. We will be doing a limited print run for this period, and we'll do a future run as well. Sorry. That's always timely to do that. Great. And so back to the slides, if you would. And I will turn it over to Michael Colford for an update on our MBLC, Mass Board of Library Commissioners 2020 Action Plan.
Great, thank you, David. As some of you may recall, every year, if we want to be eligible for any grants through the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, we're required to have an action plan on file with them. We did not submit one at the beginning of this year, and then the pandemic hit us. So we really wanted to take a moment to rethink what our action plan would be. So we have created an action plan for the remainder of 2020 and also 2021 that we would like to submit to the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. I believe you all received that in the packet that Pamela sent out. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but we do need your vote for us to move forward to submit it to the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners.
So moved. All right, second. Any questions about the plan? No. All right, second.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Pamela?
Thank you. Arano Ortiz,
Aye.
Arenas,
Aye.
Asim,
Aye.
Bradley,
Aye.
Cronin,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Josina Fori,
Aye.
Gallery,
Aye.
John Heiler,
Aye.
and China Tyler.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Jay, would you promote Caroline Driscoll, Beth Brindle, Jay Michella, and Laura Ermsher into the panelist section, please? The final item on my part of the agenda is to have the trustees briefed on the John Adams Library, as this matter has come up based upon our relationship with Quincy. And we will be asking permission at the end of the meeting to go into executive session with respect to this item, but there's a public dimension to this topic that we'd like to cover as the last part of my report. And I believe Caroline and Beth will start us off.
Yes, good morning, trustees. Over the summer, the library received a letter from the mayor of Quincy, which stated his intention to have the personal library of President John Adams return to the city of Quincy from where it currently resides at the BPL. We've taken the mayor's request as an opportunity to review not only this collection's history at the BPL, but also its guardianship or legal status. Beth Prindle, our head of special collections, is here to discuss this collection and a bit of its history. As David mentioned, we'll also be holding an executive session after we've adjourned the public meeting to discuss the legal guardianship of this collection. I'll turn it over to Beth. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. Good morning, trustees. This is Beth Prindle. I'm just going to give a little context about the John Adams Library. I know many of you are familiar with it, but I wanted to provide a little bit of background and also a little bit of its history as it relates to BPL. So the John Adams Library collection includes about 3,500 volumes representing about 1,700 titles, which were collected by John Adams, second United States president, during his lifetime. He lived a very long time, 90 years, from 1735 to 1826. And it also includes volumes donated after his death by family members. The Adams Library is incredibly significant. It's one of the great private collections of its day and remains one of the largest original early American libraries still intact. It includes subjects ranging from classics, history, politics, government, philosophy, science, mathematics, travel. Some highlights include legal texts used by John Adams during his defense of the British soldiers during the Boston Massacre trial of 1770, volumes that Adams consulted as he drafted the Massachusetts Constitution, which is still the oldest functioning constitution in the world, and hundreds of titles that were purchased abroad while he was serving as ambassador in Europe during the Revolutionary War. It also includes volumes that he read as the second president of the US in the first White House in DC. Slide 3, please. The collection is of particular interest to scholars and historians because Adams recorded thousands of manuscript annotations in the margins of his books. And to just quickly clarify one aspect where there has been some confusion in the past, the John Adams Library is not a formal designated presidential library. That term is a very specific one, which is reserved for the collected papers, records, and documents of presidential administration. presidential libraries were created by a congressional act in 1955. So instead, this is the personal collection of books by a president. So a little bit of history of this collection. Prior to Adams's death in 1826, he declared in a deed that his library should be used for educational purposes, and he entrusted it to the care of the Adams Temple and School Fund, which was charged with overseeing its continued use and its conservation. Although Adams died in 1826, the library stayed in the family home for more than 25 years until the death of his son, John Quincy Adams. In the 1850s, it was transferred first to Quincy Town Hall, where it narrowly escaped a fire, and then to the Adams Academy, the Evangelical Congregational Church in Quincy, and then to the Thomas Crane Library in Quincy. At the Crane Library, it was housed there for 10 years, but it was consulted by only 2 people, according to Adams's great-grandson. In 1893, the Adams Temple and School Fund supervisors corresponded with the BPL trustees about the possibility of moving the Adams collection to the newly constructed Central Library in Copley Square. The Temple and School Fund's stated desire was to house the library in a repository that was centrally located, that would attract scholarship and facilitate wider use of the collection. They voted to move the collection to the BPL in 1894 when the McKim building opened, and it has remained at the BPL ever since 125 years later. The 4th slide, please. So over time, BPL has made many investments in the Adams collection, including the establishment of an in-house conservation lab to repair and conserve the collection in 1982. In the early 2000s, the library secured over $600,000 in federal funding for electronic cataloging, exhibition, transcription, online access, and digitization efforts. The John Adams Unbound exhibition, which some of you may have seen, is represented in this picture. This was a gallery exhibition that opened in 2006 to national attention and welcomed nearly 60,000 visitors during its run. It's also important to note that over 3,000 volumes from the Adams collection have been fully digitized and are available electronically for reading and download via the Internet Archive, free of charge. And the Adams Library is still actively used by researchers and scholars. It's currently administered by the Rare Books and Manuscripts Department, which is undergoing a nearly $16 million renovation to provide state-of-the-art environmental control, security, and public access, and it's slated to open next year. So Caroline, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Beth. And I think that's actually where we can leave it. If the trustees have any questions, feel free to ask. But as I mentioned, we'll also be hosting an executive session after the public meeting has adjourned.
I do have a question. So do you know, Beth, what is the volume of in-person visits and digital use of this library?
So in person, as you know, the Rare Books and Manuscripts Department is closed to the public while we undergo the renovation. In terms of digital downloads, it's been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times, and I can run those numbers and get those to you.
Any questions around the John Adams Library?
No, looking forward to executive session.
Great.
Thank you. This completes the president's section of the trustees report. So Evelyn, I think.
So I hand it off to myself, I guess?
I think so. And we will need, Jay, we'll need Ellen and Matt Hunt for this, please.
Yes. Jay, can we please promote Ellen and Matthew? All right. I see Matt. Good morning, Matt.
Morning.
All right, so we're gonna, I'm gonna split the vote in 2. We have multiple votes for finance and audit. I'm gonna split it in 2. One's gonna be the audited financials and the management letter, and then the other one's gonna be the contracts. So, huh?
I was just asking Jay to forward the slide.
All right, perfect, thank you. So, so the first thing I'm gonna say, the headline around audited financials is that auditors gave us a good bill of health. There were no major findings in the audit. We specifically asked you know, if there was any challenges or concerns with quality in the overall audit due to the pandemic. And the answer was no. The auditors did go on site to gather the data. They met with the staff on a limited basis. They also didn't feel that, you know, the remote proceedings to analyze the data sacrifice the quality of the audit. So I just want to make that statement so everybody knows. The other thing is I want to thank Ellen and her team, not only for another great year, because we always, you know, they do such a great job with the audit, but also for the diligent work in completing this audit on time. There were no delays, and then especially for the quality results of the audit. So with that, Matt, do you want to please go through the audited financials, please?
Sure. Thank you. And we had the opportunity to go through the financial statements in a little bit more detail with the Finance Audit Committee about a week or two ago. So I'd like to sort of give maybe a little bit more of a condensed presentation, but before I get into any of the numbers, do want to echo the sentiments that were just expressed about a good job Ellen, Sean Monahan, and the finance team did with handling the audit a little bit more remote this year than years past. And yes, we don't feel like the quality of the audit was in any way hampered at all. So in terms of getting into the financial statements themselves, first thing is that our opinion on the financial statements is what we refer to as an unmodified opinion. That is the best opinion available in an audit, which means that your financial statements are free of any material misstatements based on our audit work. In terms of some of the numbers, want to just highlight your fund balances for a minute. Your general fund balance, excuse me, overall increased about 5%, about $220,000. One item to point out is if you look at your balance sheet, there's all sorts of categories within your general fund balance. We like to really focus in on the unassigned fund balance number, which is basically the amount of your general fund that is in no way restricted or committed for other purposes. It's free to be used as the library deems fit. That number is about $1,341,000 at the end of the year, a slight decrease from the previous year, but it is a very healthy number. It represents about 20% of your expenses. So I think that's a really good gauge to see that your fund balance in the general fund is at a healthy amount and is inconsistent with the previous years as well. In terms of your funds outside the general fund, your non-major funds, which for the most part is for all intents and purposes your trust funds. That's the primary financing aspect for the trustees. Your non-major governmental fund balance at the end of the year was about $72 million, which is consistent with the previous year. Your trust fund balance is about $62 million at the end of the year. So considering the fact that there was a huge decline in the stock markets and the investment markets in the spring due to COVID-19, overall, I feel like your trust funds did perform very well once everything sort of shook out and the markets improved as time went on. In terms of revenue and expense activity, want to maybe focus on more line items that maybe were a little bit different than the previous years and the reasons why. Special event revenues did go down about $600,000. That's to be expected. That's a direct impact of COVID-19 and the shutdown. Fees and fines for services, also I believe a direct correlation to the COVID-19 shutdowns. Your fees and fines went down about $250,000. On the positive front, your contributions and gifts increased about $600,000 from the previous year. I really attribute that to the fact that there was that shift from the previous Boston Public Library Foundation organization. There was sort of a shift in that organization. It's now referred to as the Fund for Boston Public Library. Last year was a little bit of a transition year. This year, you saw a dramatic increase in your contributions and gifts from that organization. And with investment income, again, I think all things considered, there was a $2.5 million decrease in investment income to the prior year, but you did end up with a positive amount in investment income of about $2.3 million. Not too bad, all things considering. In terms of your overall expenses and some changes from the previous year, we did see about a little bit of an under $1 billion increase in your salary and benefit costs. One thing to keep in mind is, again, these are just the financial statements of the trustees organization. Obviously, the library as a whole has various funding sources, primarily the city of Boston's budget. So you do see from year to year, there can be some shifting of costs on a budgetary basis. So this year, there was some more shifting of salary costs over to the trustees organization. Books and materials increased about $200,000 due to increased database subscriptions. In terms of your contractual services, we talked about some of your revenues sort of were impacted by COVID-19. This is an area where your expenses were impacted on a positive front. There was actually a decrease in contracted services and utilities of about $700,000. That could be attributed to decreased security costs, decreased utility costs due to the COVID-19 shutdown. So again, I'd say overall, when you consider the fact that there were no really major findings in the audit, you got a clean audit opinion, you consider the COVID-19 impacts, and yet you still have healthy amounts in your fund balances. I think all things considered, I would say it's definitely a positive report for the trustees.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions about the audited financials before I move on to the management letter?
Helen, we have to do a roll call vote. Do you want to do a vote now?
No, I want to do it after the management letter.
Okay.
All right. So if there's no questions, I move on. So on the management letter, so one of the advantages that we have with this contract is that it offers the library the flexibility to launch value-added reviews at the request of our finance team. So this year, they've selected the pay-for-print service. For you may not be familiar with some of the history, it is an area that is very challenging. This is where patrons, they either make copies or they print documents, to paper, and they pay a fee. In my opinion, this, historically the service has been challenging mostly because, the lifetime of the systems is short. Which represents some challenges to the library. The current system was introduced in 2014 after it wasn't in our audit finding for a while. And then since then, the vendor no longer supports this product. And like any system, it's about people, technology, and processes. So the library has taken care of putting changes in place to people and processes to take care of those audit findings. This is around loggings, collecting money out of the machines and the kiosks. But then the technology piece will be addressed by our CIO, Kurt, as part of the IT strategic plan. So stay tuned for upcoming changes on that. I'm not going to go belabor the details of the management letter. I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to read it. Does anybody have questions around the pay-for-print service and documented in the management letter? Nothing? Okay. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Pamela, roll call.
Thank you. So for this one is for the financial statements.
It's
and
the
Ortiz.
letter.
I have to do them. I can't do them. I have to do them separately.
Oh, you have to do. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought I was saving time. Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying. I can't do them as a slate anymore.
All right.
Financial statements. Arana Ortiz.
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Asim.
Aye.
Bradley.
Aye.
Cronin.
Aye.
Douglas.
Aye.
Josina Fori.
Aye.
Gallery.
Aye.
John Heiler.
Aye.
And China Tyler.
Aye.
All right, the motion is passed. For the second one, for the management letter, for the approval of the management letter, Arana Ortiz.
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Asim.
Aye.
Bradley.
Aye.
Cronin.
Aye.
Douglas.
Aye.
Josina Fori.
Aye.
Gallery.
Aye.
John Heiler,
Aye.
and China Tyler.
Aye.
Motion is passed.
All right, next item, we have a couple contracts for review. The first one is the Johnson Ceiling Abatement Project. So this is basically to replace the popcorn ceiling in the staff offices. And this is a request to delegation of approval of this contract. So right now, there's a bid, the responses, the estimated value is about, it's going to be between 150,000 to 250,000. The bids are due at the end of this week. And, you know, the recommendation is in order to move this contracting and the work forward to, for the trustees to please delegate approval of this contract to the Finance and Audit Committee. Any questions on that contract and the work to be performed? Nothing? All right, good. So the next one, and then we'll call for vote, Pamela. The next one is the caterer fair. The caterer fair, there's a recommendation, you know, as you all know, the caterer fair is the vendor that manages all the functions at the library. You know, for obvious reasons with the pandemic, a lot of the functions have been canceled. And then they're in the process of, you know, rebooking those functions. Their contract expires May 21st. Right, Ellen? Am I stating that?
2021, yes, this coming year.
2021, yep. And then for a couple of reasons, you know, we want to be able to give them time to be, you know, to be able to reschedule those functions. And also, you know, part of the big process, if we were to open up, you know, this contract for bid, part of the evaluation process is to have the evaluation committee go and attend various functions from the bidders to evaluate, you know, the execution of their functions. So as you know, there's no functions being held, so there's no places to visit. So for those reasons, there's a request to extend this contract for 18 months. The committee discussed, you know, was that the appropriate time? Should it be 24 months instead? But we felt that 18 months was appropriate. And so the vote here that we're calling is to extend the caterer fair contract by 18 months to make it, you know, with an expiration date of November 1st of 2022. Are there any questions around that contract?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can I ask one question? Evelyn, does this, remind me again, does this contract give them the exclusive right to cater all events at the library?
My understanding, Nell, and I'm going to ask for your help. And the reason I know this is because I did some research for an event many years ago. I don't think they have exclusive rights, but you pay a fee if you don't use them. Is that correct, Ellen?
That's right. So they have contracted but not exclusive. It's very unusual for someone else to bring in their own caterer. I think it can be more expensive, and we do cap the number of times it can happen.
Is it more expensive because the individual has to pay a penalty for using a different vendor? Or is it more expensive because the pricing doesn't work?
I think it's a combination of both, Cheryl, and I'll pull the contract. I don't have that right at my fingers and get back to you. I think from our standpoint, there is a strong value to having one catering partner. They're in the building, they know the building, they have an incentive to follow our rules. We have some pretty tight rules about what you can and can't do. There's no flame in the building. So folks who come in who think they can use flame to keep their dishes warm don't know how to use the building. They also sometimes will damage the building. We've had subcontractors that we've banned. So we think it's important to try to keep it with one catering company.
I'm going to vote for this, but I would say that I think for the future, you know, as the trends are more and more to allowing people to have choices about food, choices about the type of ethnic foods you want to utilize in particular events, that I wonder on occasion by not providing people with some choices, the disincentive for them to use the library for certain activities, and also perhaps becomes a bit unfair to parts of your community. So I certainly agree with the notion of you have to have very strict protocols for whatever vendor like this utilizes the library. It's just this approach of only allowing, essentially, only allowing one particular caterer with one particular style to do events is a little bit sort of like not consistent with current trends. So like I said, I think that just given the urgency of this, I will vote to approve it along with others, but I really do think we need to spend the next period of time really analyzing if this approach serves diverse communities in the way that we want it to.
So Cheryl, what I would say, make note of that, you know, when we go out to bid, you know, evaluate the conditions of, you know, for that contract, and then we'll evaluate then.
I have a question, if I can go next.
Sure.
Madam Vice Chair. Good morning. I wanted to know a little bit about the relationship between minority contractors and the mandates that we have around, you know, how any of our contractors do business with minority contractors. I just didn't know very much about that.
Sure. Particular to the catering contract, they tend to only use subcontractors for things like the rental of the chairs, special items like that. They hire their own staff. They have their own housemen. They have their own wait staff. So they don't tend to use a lot of subcontractors. We certainly are looking into increasing our minority and women business usage on the city and on the trustee side of our business, where we have other contracts separate from the catering functions.
But I do believe that the catered affair is owned by
a woman.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't I mean, it is a woman-owned business, and having attended different functions, their staff is, at least on, I haven't seen numbers analyzing it, but it certainly appears that their staff is very diverse.
Yep, yeah, I'd agree with that. At the events, even at the library.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just wanted to just support the idea that, you know, if anybody is, you know, seeking contracts like such or anywhere, that we have like a mandate as to what we would like to see. Maybe we can come up with that in the future, but what we would like to see, whether that be X% of a certain race, age, agenda, whatever it is, just kind of putting some mandates out there to make it easier. Or more equitable, I guess. So thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, there are a number of city either guidelines or ordinances that we're being asked to take a more serious look at, which we're very open to in terms of meeting best practices. So I think we look forward to proceeding down that path more granularly than we have in the past. And I do think to the Vice Chair's comments that in terms of changing the conditions of this contract in part or in whole, that's best done at the time of a new bid. In some ways, this extension is really about making up for the lost period where they've been unable to operate under the terms of the original contract. And certainly at the last contract, we did make some exceptions for you know, because I think it is true that when someone just wants to hold a meeting and get sandwiches or you know, whatever smaller catering support there is, that's different than a very high-end wedding or corporate event that takes up the whole building. And so I think there are some conditions around that we would want to take a look at the time of a whole new bid. And you know, I would echo the support for working with either catered affair during this extension if it's passed, or a future contractor to look at opportunities and see, yes, where are they hiring subcontractors that fit, or individual staff people who fit the profile of of what the equity statement calls us to, and what the support for minority and women-owned businesses also calls us for. So thank you for the discussion on this.
And if I may too, David, just to follow up on that, we did add in this most recent contract, because we have had some people bring it to our attention, that they now offer nonprofit pricing. So some of the smaller nonprofits now can come in somewhat reasonably priced and do smaller meetings and events.
All right.
And I just want to ask in terms of, I agree that, with the November 1st, 2022, and I also note when Caterer Affairs does seem to have a diverse group of people that serve us, as well as having can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We can hear you.
I'm wondering if any of the subcontractors, any and all of the subcontractors will be following along with our anti-racist agenda, whether or not, I didn't get a chance to look. I don't know whether Caterer Affairs had ever even extended when on the death of George Floyd, but I'm wondering how we will engage. So this goes beyond this particular vote, but will we be engaging our vendors in all areas in our anti-racist commitment?
Yeah, Priscilla, thank you so much. That's certainly my intent. It's not called as a formal action, but we did discuss in some of the staff working groups ensuring that, to start with, that people who fall in the category of partner in residence or are part of our service operation, for example, our security contract, those guards are as much a part of our staff, or they feel like as much a part of our staff as our full-time staff do, because they're often the first person that a visitor meets. Other operations such as ASA, which has a new name, the Internet Archive, like who are part of our service portfolio in some way, we want to work with them and see if they will, if they have an equivalent statement or will sign on to ours. I think the idea of extending that to our key vendors is also very important. So, so thank you for that direction.
I just had a quick question following up on Cheryl's. Are we saying that a customer has to pay a penalty if they don't use the catered affair?
I have to pull the contract, Ben. I apologize. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a penalty so much as that term, as I think it's because we've done events there. It's to use equipment. It's the servicing. It's just getting in there with your own people. It is a cost borne by that. So I wonder if that's part of it. I'm not sure, but I think Cheryl, would be worthwhile to to have that conversation in a little bit more detail, because I think you brought up some really valid points, and we're going to try to make it easier, not harder, and things have changed. So I think this would be a worthwhile discussion to take up in more detail. I think we have to approve this, but I think it's a really, from the diversity point and just from what we want to do going forward, I think it's a worthwhile discussion to get more detail on it.
Yeah, I'd like to get to a definitive answer on the penalty question. And generally, when it comes up for bid again in 2022, I think it'd be good to encourage more competition for the bids.
And just a reminder too, it's not simply the catering contract. The vendor who wins the contract also has the 2 restaurants in the McKim.
Yeah, and David, I think we were part of this when we originally did this with Catered Affair. There were, it's not the easiest thing, the combination of catering and running the restaurants. So I think we're sometimes limited. When I remember when we put it back out for bid a few years back, and Bob, maybe you remember, but we could get into that as well. But it's a complicated, if I remember correctly, it's fairly complicated business model. And so I think some conversation on this, whether we want to break it off, the restaurant and catering separately, there's a whole host of things we could discuss now in more detail, now knowing what we know.
Yeah,
go ahead, David.
As this is material to a contract, I would refer further discussion to the Finance and Audit Committee first before coming back to the full trustees in advance of a bid process in 2022. I think the exclusivity or penalty, that's not, I don't think that's the language that's in the contract, but I've likened that to like a corkage fee. If you bring your own wine to a restaurant that allows that, they sometimes charge you a fee for doing that. It's a very simple and probably banal analogy, but that's how I've thought of it. If we do not put in a condition restricting that, then it is up to any bidder to propose the most valuable proposal to the library. And I'm pretty sure at the time this was seen as the more valuable approach. I would note further that with not having been able to run any events from March through today, and God knows for how long, this is a loss of revenue to the library on the order of $1 million+, and so that will have a material effect on our operations in the future. I would ask the trustees' indulgence in supporting the contract extension, and then having the deeper dive conversation with respect to bidding the contract out for what is now the proposed 2022 date.
Yeah, David, I echo that. I also think let's, and Cheryl, I totally respect your point, and Priscilla, obviously yours as well, and others, China, but and Ben. But I also want to just say that based on our experience before everything went nuts and the world changed, you know, including all of you who were at the gala last year, I've only gotten positive feedback from friends who have had events at the library. I don't know what conversations went before, whether, gee, could we use somebody else? But in general, the Catered Affair gets pretty high marks. And anything I've ever attended, whether it was our own gala or GBH's or others, these guys have done a really good job for us, and they have got to be in Finance and Audit may know more details. This got to be a very painful period. So in my mind, rolling this forward for 18 months is fair, it seems, because none of us know where this is going to, how long this is going to go on. And then, you know, I agree with David. We can take up, and John and others, we can take up the other questions in the normal course of reviewing the contract. But these guys, in my view, have been very good partners to us, with us, changing the restaurants, redoing the bar to make it more appealing. News Cafe, along with GBH, has clearly been a success. So I don't want to lose sight of what good partners these guys have been to us, at least in the 5 years I've been engaged with the library.
Can I just want to say one thing. My comment should not in any way be construed as any kind of negative reflection on the Catered Affair. I agree. I think they're wonderful. I think for their model and what they do a great job. But I do think that we need to think long-term about whether, given our place in the community, whether we owe it to the community to have, be able to offer opportunities to a broader range of young chefs and others who would like to be able to function at the library from time to time and provide some diverse range of, you know, culinary experiences for events. And so anyway, this is not at all a reflection of the Affair.
Yeah, so Finance and Audit will take an action. We'll start including language in our contracts that support our racial equity statement. So any more questions? All right. If not, Pamela, can we do roll call for votes on these two items?
Yes, sure can. In regards to delegation to the Finance and Audit, we'll call Orlando Ortiz.
Aye, and actually, I didn't call for a motion. So hold on.
You're right. I'm sorry.
So sorry. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Now, roll call. Aye.
So I got Orlando Ortiz on record. Arenas?
Aye.
Asim?
Aye.
Bradley?
Aye.
Cronin?
Aye.
Douglas?
Aye.
Tina Forey?
Aye.
Gallery?
Aye.
John Heiler?
Aye.
China Tyler?
Aye.
Great, motion has been moved. Second, if you could do the motion for TCA contract?
Yeah. Can I get a motion to extend the caterer fair contract 18 months to November 1st, 2022?
So moved.
Second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Great. Arano Ortiz?
Aye.
Arenas?
Aye.
Asim? Jabari, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Bradley?
Aye.
Cronin?
Aye.
Douglas?
Aye.
Josina Fori?
Aye.
Gallery?
Aye.
John Heiler?
Aye.
And China Tyler?
Aye.
Motion has moved. Okay.
All right, next item. Ellen, do you want to give a, oh, that's not in there? Oh, okay. I thought that we had to go through a quick report of donations, but I guess not.
That was in the former slide.
Oh, okay, got it.
There.
All right, so any, is that again, Pamela?
Jay, can you just move? Can you move the slide back one?
Hello, Jay.
Sorry, I had the
No, we
share
don't have,
pause.
we don't have one, Pamela. Ellen, do you want to rattle off a quick summary of gifts and
Let me see if I can find it on my computer.
I have this the PDF document if you'd like me to share it real quick.
That would be much.
As a reminder, while he's pulling up that PDF, if anyone from the public would like to make public comment, please sign up via the chat.
There we go. So the gifts report has changed a bit this year. And just to remind folks what the purpose of this is up to about 15 or 20 years ago, I think the library could only accept a donation once the trustees had approved it. That obviously caused some problems with not depositing checks until we had a trustee meeting. So the decision was made that we would accept the money as it came in and report to the trustees once a year. This past year, Mary Flynn Myers, former director of the fund, asked that we send individual contributions directly to the fund so that they could keep track of all the donors in one place. So this report is a little different than you're used to seeing. It really only has the larger donors, the fund, the associates, citywide friends, and then some direct gifts, and including money given directly for trust funds that we already have on the books. That would be the Shishki Fund. Charity Elker has a fund in her mother's name. She was a branch librarian, a children's librarian in Dorchester, and she continues to add to her mother's endowment periodically. So it's a little different than you're used to seeing, and I think we will continue in this way now under Paula Saki at the fund. But I'm happy to answer any questions on the individual gifts or the new direction.
Any questions? No?
Vice Chair, just on behalf of the library.
I should call out the Friends of the South End because they did have a particularly large gift this year to help with the capital improvements over there.
And I would just like to add that we want to extend on the record formally our longstanding thanks to all donors to the library, particularly those that come through the fund and the associates, the citywide friends, and any of the individual branch friends groups. It all together allows us to do all of the things that we want to do and that they want us to do. So thank you.
I believe details are posted on our website, right? Because this document's a little hard to see. All right. Well, thank you everyone who supports the library. We greatly appreciate it. All right. Any new business?
I just want to thank David and the team, incredible presentation this morning. I mean, the work that you're doing in terms of the digital divide to put the Wi-Fi hotspots, right, and extend it outside of the building in the 9 locations are so important, as we've seen stories over the last, several weeks, right, where young people are sitting outside of fast food restaurants, right, on the sidewalk to do their work. And so I congratulate you all and Lena and Michael and the team for really figuring out how we're going to make sure our young people are not having significant learning loss. So I just want to say great job.
Here, here.
And I don't know if you guys knew, but Kurt was featured in an interview and talking about all the technical challenges during the pandemic and how to offer, technical, access to the community. I will encourage you to watch it. Really, really good, very inspiring work with the work that the library is doing. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think one more thing, we voted on the Boston Public Library Race and Equity Statement today, and Linda has been put on the Boston Racial Equity Fund Steering Committee for the city of Boston, which I think should be acknowledged because it's a terrific opportunity to really get the city on the right track and keep it going for a long time. And Linda, congratulations. That's great news, and I think it's important and what we voted for today.
Thank you. And that's the other piece too, as you said that, David, great job, right? In terms of the leadership of you and your staff to come up with that statement and to say it's not just a statement, but there's action steps behind it. And no doubt Dr. Crockett is quite incredible. And she also has the Human Rights Commission under her as well. And so, there's a lot of work to do to move the city forward, but it's exciting times. And I see Representative Tyler, who's holding it down in the State House. We'll double back. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm going on mute now.
Thank you all. I think we all know we have a lot more work to do, and sometimes it's more about the individual touch point that you have with a single patron. But we believe we're headed in the right direction.
All right. Thank you all for your comments. Pamela, can we open up public comment, please? You're on mute.
I'm looking through the list, but we can start with David Vieira, who I know had signed up.
Sorry, give me just a second to get him up. All right, David, unmute at will, and you are allowed to talk. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Am I coming through?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'd first like to say that everything that went on at this meeting today was great. And I would also like to acknowledge the work of the management and staff of the Boston Public Library for everything they've done during this very difficult time. As the Citywide Friends liaison to the branches, I would also like to pay particular attention to the fact that several branches have really stepped up to support the work of the library in terms of patron support. And I would particularly point out the work of the South End branch, the Jamaica Plain branch, the Rosendale branch, and the Eggleston Square branch, which is not to say that some of the other branches have not done well, but these 4 branches in particular have really stepped up in the public commitment to support the patrons during this period. I brought this next particular subject up before, that in the branch system with the Friends, there's a lot of gray money that you people never see. And I'd like to ask the CFO and the president of the library to sit down with the Citywide Friends to work out some kind of reporting apparatus so that you as trustees know the kind of money that's being spent on the branch level. there are several branches that raise and spend thousands of dollars every year that do not get acknowledged. And I know those acknowledgements cannot go on your report as previously presented because it doesn't come directly to the trustees. But I think it's important that these things get acknowledged. I'd also like to acknowledge the service of South End President Marlene Ninehouse, who recently announced that after 14 years, she is retiring as president of the South End branch. This branch in particular has set itself aside as being a real leader in promoting the branch system. And I'd like to thank Marlene for her years of dedicated service to the branch and to the system. So that's my comments as the Citywide Friends liaison to the branches. On a personal note, I've attended the Audit and Finance Committee meeting. I attended the Budget Committee meeting in May for the library and this meeting. There doesn't seem to be a lot of concern about the elephant in the room, which is the big hole in the state budget and the big hole that's going to happen in the city budget over the next year. And the library doesn't seem to be able to keep itself together in terms of what they do for outreach to the donor community. We now have a new director of strategic planning. We have a new director of the Fund for the Boston Public Library. And continuing to play musical chairs with these positions does not send out a positive comment on how the library is operating these kinds of things. So I know that the answer I'm going to get is that both positions, the people who held positions that were replaced probably left for personal reasons, and that's fine. But the point remains that the donor community looks for continuity in these positions, and by continuing to play musical chairs, we're not doing ourselves any favors. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Pamela?
Looking at the chat, there were some comments that were made throughout the meeting, which were not written down as liking to speak on public comment. So I just want to reiterate, if you would like to give public comment, please sign up your name as I would like to give public comment in the chat. The only other person was Louisa Stevens. Other than that, I don't have anyone else that actually said they'd like to give public comment.
Louisa, I'm adding you right now. And you can unmute at will. Thank you.
Good morning, trustees. Thank you for giving me 2 seconds to talk. I just wanted to announce an exciting fundraiser that is coming up. You might have seen a terrific Globe article last week that highlighted this, but if not, the Associates of the Boston Public Library is hoping to replace a little bit of the lost revenue that from not being able to hold Literary Lights last April. So we are hosting an online auction next month. Bidding runs from October 16th to 25th, and we are putting up for bid things like Zoom sessions with authors such as Gregory Maguire, Amor Tolles, David Gergen, Jill Lepore, Samantha Powers, and many others. There's an original cartoon by the New Yorker's Roz Chast. There's a signed script from Downton Abbey, signed by Julian Fellows. Governor Patrick put up a mini library on social and racial justice that he's inscribing in each book. You could have your names written into Joseph Finder's next thriller. So basically there's a bunch of exciting auction items. We're encouraging everyone to register to bid now. The URL is biditbookit.org, all one word. That's the name of our auction, Bid It, Book It. And I'm just trying to spread the word. So I wanted you to know this is our our new initiative. And if you didn't get a chance to read the article, everybody in it really were, who was interviewed were authors who were just talking about how wonderful the library is and what a special place libraries played in their roles as growing up and as authors. And it just spread a little bit of library love. So check it out. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louisa. And the link is provided in the chat to all panelists and attendees. Do you have any more public comment, Pamela? If not, can we do roll call to break into executive session, or do we have anybody else?
Yep, has anyone seen anyone else that actually signed up for public comment? Jay, did you see any? There's other comments that people made throughout, which makes it a little confusing to have just.
Just while we're just double checking if there are others, I wanted to make a couple of comments on earlier comments. We are watching David's elephant very, very closely, both in terms of the city budget, the state budget, which got rolled into October, even for this year, let alone before we go to next year. And with respect to personnel transitions, Ben Hires left to become CEO of the Boston Chinatown Community Center organization, which was a great step up for him. I think that's a credit to his work here at the library. Mary Myers moved on, indeed, yes, to take care of some sick family members and personal matters. And I would assure the board that with Paula joining the team, we have been reaching out to all of our major donors to ensure continuity. I expect that at our November meeting, we will do a much deeper dive on the status of the elephant, which is very concerning. While right now we don't know the balance of the picture financially for the state, nor do we know the balance of the financial picture with respect to events revenue, because there isn't any. You know, the city of Boston remains committed to supporting the library during this fiscal year. While there is a partial hiring freeze in place, we've been able to continue to hire essential and critical positions. And so we'll continue to monitor the situation and move forward. So just wanted to put that on the record that we will go into both our standard fundraising streams and our development world at the November meeting.
Thank you. There is one person who signed up. Her name is Paula Coor, C-O-A-R.
I'm adding you right now, Paula. And you can unmute and comment at will. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Coor. I live in the community on Martin Luther King Boulevard. And I'm calling you guys and commenting about wanting to rename the library to Nubian Square Library. It is our understanding that the board members had a meeting and indicated that you would hear from the community on the naming of the library before the library was actually named. However, that was not done, and we have it in writing that you were going to have the community come in and talk about or we could do it through Zoom, talk about what we would like the library to be called. Roxbury Library, it is called right now, was decided by people who are not in the community. A lot of you don't even live here in this community, and we are not happy about Roxbury Library not being called Nubian Square Library. As you know, in many of our libraries, like Eggleston, it's called Eggleston Square Library, Mattapan Square Library, and we feel that it will be very an excellent way of letting our children, who are mostly of Black and Brown heritage, which is of African heritage, who come to that library, to walk in that library and see not only Nubian exhibits, but also see themselves. And also, we feel there should be continuity of that library being called Nubian Square Library. So we would like to revisit the naming of this library. And we've already have some things going on to make sure that this happens, because this is what the community wants. This is what we want. The community voted for Nubian Square. The community voted for Nubian Square bus service. The community voted, and we want to also see the library called Nubian Square Library. So we want to know, when can we talk to you, sit down, have a discussion on renaming this library?
David, I don't know if you want to answer that or you want me to answer that.
This is formal business of the trustees, which a vote was taken on at a previous meeting. You know, I appreciate hearing from members of the community who are on both sides of this issue, but I would refer it back to the trustees.
So Paula, you made a statement about us not living there, not working there, and I don't agree with your statement. You know, I personally chair the Fellows Committee, which it's been launching programs for many years. I've been chair for, wow, since I started as a trustee. And I don't, you know, I took very seriously what the Friends of the Library, who are very devoted to this library, have said, and their opinions as well. My own experience, and that's how I casted my vote, due to my experience and all the work that I've done for many years at in Roxbury. And so, you know, I will have to say that, you know, people had, I mean, it was a very animated discussion. People took it very seriously. And, you know, we're gonna uphold the vote that was taken by the trustees. All right, do we have anybody else?
One more check. And I have one other person. Her name is Mrs. Smith. Her first name is Jamada. Jay?
Adding you right now, Jamada. I hope I said that right. Forgive me if I didn't. And
yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just want to make an appeal to all of the individuals. The problem here is the unfairness and the integrity of the promise. The promise was made that the trustees would get an opportunity to hear people out before the vote would take place. And so the process was not fair. And I don't know whether all of the trustee members are aware, because if they had been made aware, I'm not even, like my position, I'm not caring too much about whether the brown or black or whether this, that, or the other. I just think there's some other valid points. And so I think that the problem is the defect in the process, and the process was improper. If all of the trustees had been made aware and had an opportunity to listen, you know, but we were told, actually by way of letter, we have a copy of that letter, that there will not be a vote on this issue, okay, regarding the naming of that library, without the public being invited. And it happened. And so that's my particular thing. My thing is that you all, and I don't think that you all want to be guilty of that. It might have been a glitch. It might have been an error. And even if you, the least you could do is hear people out, because you're not being fair to the people if you don't. And that's just my position there. And I think that it's a very fair and valid position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith, for joining us.
That was all I see signed up for I don't see any other names. Jay, did you see anyone else?
I think that's all that we have in the chat. I'm trying to double check Some of the comments didn't have a request to name or speak publicly.
And I just want to, just for the record, and Mrs. Smith, we thank you for joining us today. Just to clarify, as the chairwoman mentioned, there was a robust conversation that took place at our last board meeting. There were several meetings that happened in the community of Roxbury. Several groups spoke, those who wanted to change the name to Nubian, other folks from Roxbury who did not want to change the name to that. And so, you know, we had a deliberation. It was a long conversation, right? And then we voted. And so I just want to be clear for the record that there was community process that took place. In the vote that we took, I believe in May, you know, we had both those that are for from Roxbury and those that were against the naming as well. So thank you for being part of the process.
Thank you, Linda. All right, so can we please, Pamela, call a roll call to break into executive meeting?
Actually, yes. We just need to explain. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Can you just make sure, Caroline, can she be upgraded so she can explain that? Would you like me to?
Caroline is promoted.
Hello. Here I am. Hi. So yes, we are going to have an executive session, as the slide indicates, to discuss the legal guardianship of the John Adams Library under Exemption 3 of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law. We believe that this is a valid way to proceed due to some other legal matters that are now pending. And we'll take a roll call from here. And I will just note that we will not be reconvening in a public session after this executive session. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you, Caroline. Can you make a motion for me, Evelyn?
Yes, can I get a motion to break into executive session to address the request for the John Adams Library?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Ron Ortiz.
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Asim.
Aye.
Bradley.
Aye.
Cronin. Aye. Douglas.
Aye.
Josina Forey.
Aye.
I'm not sure if Bob Gallery got knocked off. I saw a message on his phone, but Gallery?
I don't see him on.
Yeah, I think he got knocked off. John Heiler
Aye.
and China Tyler.
Aye.
Okay. Motion was passed. Just adjourn the meeting from here, Evelyn.
Okay, so meeting adjourned. We'll see you on the.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in another. You should have another link to join the executive session. Thank you.
Yes, if the trustees could hang up and go on to the other session, that would be great. Thank you.